Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition 130 of the CantinaMX podcast, the Cachirules podcast, we were the 2-0 podcast. We had a very special edition, 7-0 podcast, a couple summers ago, but we are now the CantinaMX podcast and have been for a pretty decent amount of time. My name is John Jagu. Glad to have you with us tonight. We do have a really good show for you planned tonight, as we do every week, but this one seems to be particularly special because we do have a very good guest on tonight. We have Tom Harrison joining us a little later. Tom Harrison, for those of you that follow Liga MX, especially Liga MX in English, are aware of his analytics and his statistical breakdowns of games in Liga MX. I know that there's some point of contention for some folks with some of the stats that he has proven, or not proven, but had to discuss certain players. And of course, there are some folks that are very happy with some of his results as well. But we are going to have him on a little bit later on the show, live on tape, as we will play back a recording that we had earlier this afternoon. And of course, we'll jump into the usual topics we'll have here on the podcast. We had a lot of stuff to talk about this week. We have CONCACAF Champions semifinals, the first legs, games between MLS teams and Liga MX. And we'll probably talk a little Zlatan Ibrahimovic, because we're trying to get him on the show. But the reality is I think that this show is just a little too big for Zlatan. So I don't think that Zlatan would really take something Herculean in order to for Zlatan to be on the show with us tonight or any of the nights that we broadcast. But like I said, we do have a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and do that. Our panel will join us momentarily. We do have a couple of folks on. Joining us over in the southeast side of the greater Austin metropolitan area, we have Albert Campa and Chiquis. Chiquis, how are you, sir?
Hey, John. Doing good.
Chiquis, I'm kind of glad I have you on, because you and I are, when it comes especially to CONCACAF Champions or anything America Chivas related, we are very unbiased, impartial observers. I think you and I, where it's we always take a very level-headed approach on how things happen between those two. We are no drama when it comes to Chivas and Club America, and we saw two teams play their semifinals. One, Chivas plays against the New York Red Bulls, and Club America played against Toronto FC up in Toronto. They lost 3-1, and Chivas won 1-0. And Chiquis, I wouldn't mind starting with you on Club America. What was Piojo thinking when he had the diarrhea of the mouth talking about how Liga MX is, regardless of what he said, it doesn't really matter necessarily of just, what he said. It was just, why would you give any team that kind of motivation or, a reason to come out with a little more determined to give a little bit extra effort, kind of like what Niko Kovac did for Mexico in the Croatia game in Brazil in 2014. It was, when I heard him say it, I was like, dude, did you not learn your lesson? The lesson that Niko gave you?
Yeah, that I sort of agree with what he was saying. He wasn't saying it as bad as everyone made it out to be, which is, the Liga MX is better than MLS. But yeah, he should have calmed down. I think he's a really emotional guy, and that's why he came out and said that. But he really level-headedly said that Liga MX teams play better, but don't necessarily win. And I think he referred to the Tigres game, the Tigres, losing, of course, to Toronto, and
sure.
But I think he said that Tigres looked like the better team. They played better football, but of course, that doesn't mean you're going to win. And
right.
This goes back to the way the U.S. would win all the time.
He also said that the Liga MX doesn't compete with MLS; they compete with European clubs. Which to us, yeah. To a certain degree, he's right. But MLS competes with the same European clubs too. So let's not pretend that. See, to me, anytime you give your opponent any kind of reason to have whatever it is, any kind of extra motivation to
prove themselves, right?
Exactly. Especially with the league that already has a chip on its shoulder when it comes to Liga MX to begin with, and so I really wasn't quite sure what the strategy was on that. And then the strategy in the game itself, I thought, despite the fact that the field was bad for both teams. So it's not like, America was skating and Toronto was not. But why on earth would you open yourself up that much in a game like that, where really, if you can, especially after they got the goal, get the goal. I'm not saying, don't go out and attack, but just be reasonable about it. And America was not. And, coming back from one goal is one thing. Coming back from two goals is obviously, twice as difficult. So, and then of course, on top of everything else, Piojo has to double down and triple down by just, the stuff he's saying. And, he was talking about how the cops were hitting his players, which of course they never, actually wrote a formal complaint about. And then he just went on. It was like Piojo from 10 years ago, not the level-headed Piojo that we've seen since the incident. And I think he kind of cost his kind of maybe made it a little harder for the players than it had to be.
Yeah, I think the last few years MLS has sort of shown up a little bit at the beginning of this tournament, and then in the end, or the return leg, Mexico would just blow people away, or win 2-1 or 3-1. Now this is getting a little bit more serious, and then you hear the talk about, I think who mentioned it about the salaries. I think it might have been Piojo, that the MLS salaries are just something that Liga MX can't compete with. They're paying their players a lot more than what you could make in Liga MX.
Well, I think
And
that could be true. Well, see, first of all, yes, they can. They choose not to. And secondly, I think that for the A-listers, let's call them, the designated players in
yeah,
MLS, that's yeah, they do pay them a boatload of money. That's not to say that Mexico can't do that, but I do think that overall, player 20 on a Liga MX team is going to make a lot more money than player 20 on an MLS side. So that totally balances out, in my opinion.
yeah. So with that, and then with these results that have been happening, if they beat America in this series, I think Chivas has a good chance. But if something happens to where Toronto wins the whole thing, I think we can see less of what Piojo's sort of defensive, and what his statements are. He's defensive of the league, defensive of MLS trying to take over this tournament and the dominance in the region. So that's why he's expressing and he's getting rustled and triggered and all kinds of stuff. But
Right.
If Toronto were to win, I think it would humble Liga MX players, humble Piojo, people like Piojo, and they get down to business and take things seriously, and then they could shift the tide back and take the next 5 CONCACAF champions tournaments. And so it's a matter of like mentality. I think Piojo's just getting too upset, taking it too personal.
Well, ultimately, what's going to happen, in my opinion, at least, is when it comes to this tournament, is that it's not going to be the sole property of Liga MX sides. I think that ultimately, I'm not saying it's going to be a 50-50 split, but I do think that MLS and even other countries' teams are going to are going to find a way to win, and for Liga MX fans to think that this is just the sole property of Liga MX, and which it has been since the tournament was refurbished in its current capacities. That has been the case, and it has rarely that we've even seen two teams not from Liga MX play the final. It's always been the one Liga MX side, and occasionally there's been a couple of MLS side, but that hasn't always been the case. It's been two Liga MX teams, but that is not sustainable, and over the long term. And I think that we're going to start seeing that. I'm not saying necessarily it's going to start happening in this edition, but it's going to definitely start happening in the foreseeable future. Now, the other game that we had, Chiquis, was last night, and Chivas did get a 1-0 victory. More importantly, they did not give up the away goal, which seems to be just like almost like the death knell in this tournament, when teams give up an away goal in the first leg. And not always the case, but usually it definitely helps. So they only won 1-0. I don't necessarily think that New York was there to defend, but what they did do is that they defended extremely well. They put a lot of pressure on Chivas, and they forced Chivas into some uh, passes that they weren't necessarily ready to make. I saw a Chivas side that was a lot sloppier than they normally are, and I think and big thanks to the way that the Red Bulls was playing. And when Red Bulls did kind of taper off the pressure, Chivas was still hearing footsteps. I mean, there were a lot of guys that were still, making passes where when they didn't want to make a pass, and they had so many chances to get a counterattack going, and it just unforced errors just killed them. And frankly, they were lucky to score the goal, and because they just were, for whatever reason, just could not generate anything offensively. I wonder if we have any Chivas, any Chivarmanos with us yet that can defend their team. I wonder if Juan Uribe has his ears on, he can come on and set us straight with the ship. But what they did do is that they did get the big win. They got the goal on a great again a defensive play that sparked the counterattack, and Pizarro set up Cone Brizuela, who was able to score to give Chivas the 1-0 win. They came real close, Chiquis, to giving up an equalizer with again sloppy ball handling in the back. And the New York Red Bulls came very close to capitalizing with Wright Phillips, who just unfortunately for Red Bulls fans just kicked it right at the goalie. And credit to Cota for coming out as fast as he did. I think he kind of startled Wright Phillips in his play.
That was a pretty good. Even though he was looking away, he looked away because he was running on so fast that Cota still was able to make the stop. There was going back to the America game real quick. I think the first goal that Toronto scored wasn't really a penalty, but on the other hand, with the Chivas game, there was a handball in the box that wasn't called. I think a lot of MLS fans are complaining about.
Well, they're never going to call that handball. I mean, let's talk about that play. So, a Chivas player, I think it was it Alanis or was it?
One of the defenders, I forget which
one of the two, had his hand out, and the ball deflected off of a Red Bulls player. So it was already an unnatural, part of a play. Hitting the guy's hand. I mean, the guy did not strike the ball with his hand. The ball struck his hand as he was defending. There's no way any referee is ever going to call that a handball. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. But yeah, as far as the game, I think I was surprised to see that counterattack goal and for the defense to be so, for an MLS team especially. And I think that's how Toronto, at least, and the other teams have played, like typical U.S. teams, real a lot of order in the back and on the lines and disciplined. But they left only, I think, 2 in the back, and that counterattack just killed them.
Right.
So usually you don't expect that from or U.S. teams, MLS teams. But I think Chivas did a good job there. After that, I guess they figured it out. They figured the defense out, and Chivas couldn't do too much.
No, it was fortunate for Chivas to get the win, and I was actually impressed with the way that that Red Bulls, played defensively. I mean, it wasn't, they did not do the, like you said, where they have the, basically the 1-8-1 formation where they just pack as many guys as possible in a 4-yard and just hope that they can hang. They didn't do that at all. I mean, they were high pressing. As soon as Chivas would hit the midfield, they would jump at them. I mean, they really caused Chivas a lot of problems. And a lot of the chatter that I was able to see from folks that watch Chivas on a more regular basis was that was probably the worst game that Chivas had played all year, as far as like trying to impose their style of play onto the match. They couldn't do it. They could not do it. I know that people laugh at us when it comes to, we have a lot of fun with Eduardo Lopez La Chofis, but they missed La Chofis last night. I mean, they missed a guy that can maintain possession, because even Pizarro, as good as he played, I know he was named the man of the match. He had some opportunities to really do some damage, and he just a couple of unforced errors just kind of killed him. So
I think Pizarro always impresses, but he just has a lot of individual talent, and it doesn't really, a lot of times, doesn't transmit to team talent and contributing to the team. Just seeing him on the end line or in the corner, he was just fooling those players all over the place. I think him and some other guy on it might have been. Um, the footwork that he has is just incredible. But yeah, trophies I think was definitely missed. I saw a lot on Twitter. I saw a lot of flying goats from the Chivas fans, which, like you said earlier, that I don't really see I don't really see the need to be flying around with like a flying goat with a 1-0. I was expecting 2 maybe 3-0 win. Then you could be excited, but this could very much turn around and be a pretty dangerous game for Chivas in the second leg.
Well, sure, there's no question. I mean, 1-0 is with a home goal like that in the first leg. I mean, you might as well not have scored. I mean, yes, it's nice that you have it, and obviously, if you get the away goal, then especially if you score first, then you're forcing the other team to score 3, and then you really have, you take command of the
Yeah, is
tie.
Trophy's
But
coming back?
that I'm not sure. I'm hoping we have our the folks that have their fingers on the pulse of the goat to let us know. I know we got one on, but he's not. He didn't want to talk to us. He
Yeah,
must be compiling all his notes. So he's going to be ready to go here in a second.
yeah, because
But
if he's
it's going to be hard. I mean, they need people that can score goals, and and Cone Brizuela, as good a player as he is, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but he is no Chofis. I mean, he's just not. I mean, Chofis just adds a different element that Brizuela just doesn't necessarily have. And I know that Pulido was playing last night, but I mean, I would have never. I saw him more. He was playing like a defensive forward almost. He was like the the third central on all the set plays, which is what New York wants. I mean, New York has a huge height advantage with some other guys. Set pieces are going to be a problem for Chivas. They're going to be a problem up in New Jersey again. So yeah, it would have made sense for Pulido to play as that third central on the on those set pieces. But luckily, here I am, like I'm talking about Chivas, like I know what I'm talking about. We should probably go ahead and turn the reins over to someone who does know. And then the question was, especially this guy who, as like I am, a card carrying trophy chaser, Rigo Ayala Jones Raton. Chivas missed trophies last night, probably more than people are willing to admit.
How's it going, guys? Yeah, they missed him a lot. I felt like they missed him a lot because he's able to retain possession and take guys on. And I felt like although Connie Brizuela is really, really fast and he has good ball control, I
He's
felt like
Jurgen Damm with a bigger nose. Let's face it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, not as bad, but and he definitely bigger nose. Um, but he definitely doesn't do what Trophies does. And I felt
I
that
think his nose helps him because it kind of like it's a kind of aerodynamic. It kind of it's like a good point to kind of pierce the wind
yeah, I mean,
as
and
he's running through.
luckily he wasn't
I,
offsides with that nose though on that
That's
goal,
true.
right?
that was really close. That second defender is what keeps him on. When
Yeah,
the second defender runs back, he keeps him on. Um,
and he didn't even see him. He was looking the other way,
yeah,
and so that was sort of
but it
risky.
did feel like that I feel like Trophies and Pizarro have a good connection when they're out there,
Sure.
and it felt like that was missed on the field. But I saw today he was training, so he might be back for the next game.
Well, they're desperate now. Are you going to be able to contain yourself when you go to New Jersey next week, or are
You
you?
know, um, I'm 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 nervous, but I feel like we're gonna get the W.
Oh, I'm not
Only
talking
be
about that. I'm talking about trophies. I'm going to make sure you're not going to like
oh
kidnap.
oh I'm gonna be sitting like right behind him.
Yeah.
I might try to go to the hotel where they're staying at if I can find those details out.
Are you
Maybe
going to
I can.
give him the nickname I suggested for you? He doesn't want to be called Achoy Kame El Jalalolo.
I mean I'll run it by him, see what he
Okay.
thinks.
All right. I think
Um,
it's a good name for him.
I mean yeah, I mean we could definitely see what he thinks, and maybe that's what we call him from now on.
So he's going to
But
play. What, in your opinion, does obviously they have to score goals. We get that, but how is Chivas going to get the result they need in New Jersey next week?
Well, I felt like last night Red Bulls came and they were just pressuring Chivas really high, hoping that Chivas would make a mistake, and it ended up backfiring on them because they made the mistake. But while they were pushing really high, they weren't really taking advantage of like the mistakes they were making Chivas have. So I think I mean that they this time they have to bring the game to Chivas, and I feel like Chivas is gonna catch them on a counter. They didn't feel dangerous when they had the ball, as far as like when they actually had possession. They felt more dangerous when they were counterattacking or on set pieces.
Definitely on the set pieces. I think that
Yeah,
every Chivas fan,
I
whether
was I
they'd
was
like to
holding my
admit to it,
breath.
yeah, had their
I,
heart in their throat for sure on every single one.
so I think Chivas is going to try to counterattack them.
And what are the
Um,
chances that there'll be a pro Chiva crowd in New Jersey?
I'd say it's probably going to be about 80% Chivas fans there. Even though Red Bulls attempted to stop that by only selling 3 game uh, like match sets. So when you bought a ticket, you could only buy a ticket for three. You had to buy a ticket for 3 games.
Right.
So even though they tried that, I don't think it ended up working out.
Well, I mean, it's not often that Chivas make it all the way up to the East Coast like that. I mean, especially in a game that matters, in a game that counts. And Chivas fans are going to pay. I mean, they're going to pay
They'll pay
whatever it
whatever.
takes.
Yeah, they'll pay whatever. The match is sold out.
Right.
So I've never seen a Red Bulls match sold out ever. So I think it's gonna be 80% Chivas fans there.
They could move it over to Giant Stadium and it would probably sell out.
Yeah, oh definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, I actually ended up buying tickets because I didn't want to risk my accreditations not coming through.
Sure.
So I bought a ticket, but I got word today that my press pass was
Yeah.
accepted.
And you've said it, and I was on Daniel's show earlier in the week saying that the press area is fantastic because you guys are outside. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it's such great. Like you're right in the middle of the field. You're right behind the benches. You're outside. So I mean, hopefully we have good weather because every other
Right.
match that I've been to for the Conca Champions has been freezing or raining. So hopefully we have good weather. It's supposed to
Well,
snow here on
but you're
Monday.
covered. You're covered though, aren't you? I mean,
Yeah,
like
you're
on top.
covered. Yeah, it still gets cold though.
Sure.
But you are covered, so you can
You
sit
should bring
there
a,
and
you
you
should
can.
bring a heating pad. You sit on your heating pad and you stay warm.
That I mean, it might snow on Monday, so that might have to be
Ooh,
the what we got to do.
yeah. Little tricks like that is what we had to do
Or
when
bring us
when I was
serape.
doing. Yeah, exactly. Bring two or three. Bring two or three.
But I don't think Red Bull Arena. I don't think the people at Red Bull Arena are prepared for what's about to happen as far as like a Mexican invasion in that building, and just the ruckus outside.
Right.
It's
No, I
gonna
mean
be
it's
madness.
gonna be a great atmosphere.
Yeah,
Now, do you give what Liga MX side do you give a better chance of advancing, America or Chivas?
because of who the opponents are and what the aggregate score is, I would say Chivas. Do I think America could um, come back from that 3-1? Yeah, they could easily come back. The problem with Toronto is that they have a lot more talent.
Right.
Um, and Javinko, like always, can just you give him a set piece and it's almost a goal every single time.
Right.
So they catch you on one set piece and it's now you got to score 4 goals or 5 goals. Um, so I think that's really what hinders America is the bad performance in the away game.
Yeah.
While if Chivas scores one, Red Bulls has to score 3 goals.
Right.
Um, which it's not something that they can do, but it'll be a lot harder.
Now Piojo did say that that, oh yeah, we will make up the goals, no problem. That was after he inserted his foot in his mouth before the game, and then he did so 5 or 6 times immediately after. And why can't you just accept the fact that you open your mouth, it backfired on you, you got your ass kicked, and that's that. I mean, it cracks me
he
up.
said he said everything but what he should have said, which was, I underestimated the opponent and I sent out a lineup that probably wasn't, the optimal lineup to play them. Um, and that's what he should have said, but he didn't say that. He sat on his high horse and wanted to blame the police
I will say
for
this: if America is able to pull this off, then Piojo will then be
vindicated.
well, not only that, you'll be exact vindicated, and then become an America legend. They'll want to build statues out, of him after that if they're able to win this and win especially if they achieve us in the final. It'll him in his eyes, that's what Americanismo is all about. Is what Piojo, they'll act like it was all part of the plan.
Yeah, but I will say this: I would prefer to face America over Toronto in the final as a Chivas fan,
Yeah,
and I'm
sure.
sure
That'd be an easier
it'd be an
opponent,
easier
I think.
matchup. Yeah,
Yeah, and a bigger game, of course.
I think Toronto is just because of their physicality, it causes Chivas trouble because Chivas is a bunch of guys that are like 5'7",
Right.
and we saw it against the Red Bulls, like with that high pressure was really bothering them, and I think America will let Chivas play their game, and they'll both play their games, and whoever takes advantage of those opportunities, but I think Toronto will bring that high pressure to Chivas, and they'll try to outmuscle them, and then on top of that, they have the finesse with Javinko.
Well, not only will they, I mean, they let Toronto play their game, and it didn't seem to work out too well for Club America. I kind of tend to agree with you. I think that especially after Toronto got that third goal, that was. I'm not saying that America can't score 2 goals. Obviously, they can score 2 goals. I mean, they did it. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem, especially in Mexico City. I think that Toronto will have to deal with, at least in the second half, some very, very, very hot lungs that they have to deal with. So
I think they're flying. I mean, they're flying out there already.
They're there already.
Yeah, they're preparing. They're taking it seriously.
Yeah, MLS allowed them to skip their game for this weekend, and
so they've already flown and preparing.
Yeah, they're already in Mexico City, so they're going to be training. I mean,
1 week is not. Yeah, 1 week is not. I don't think too. I wouldn't say it's sufficient.
Well, according to Juan Carlos Osorio, he said, it's usually 4 days for the body to get acclimated to the altitude,
air pressure.
According to Juan Carlos Osorio. So, well, yeah. So, well, I mean that good for Toronto and good for the MLS for giving them the opportunity to make the necessary moves in order for them to prepare for this.
I do think for a while, Chivas America is a more attractive final. I think an MLS team and a Liga MX team would be a more attractive final for the casual American fan.
Because right. I mean, obviously, if Toronto makes it at the a Toronto Chivas final would be, I'm sure it would be exactly what
MLS
wants and what
and CONCACAF. Yeah. For sure. I mean, or even the other way around. Let's say Red Bulls makes it somehow, and America makes it like that. Either way, I think either way is what CONCACAF would want.
Well, luckily for MLS is they have the major media market in the U.S., which is New York, and they have the major media market in Canada, which is Toronto. Still in this thing, and then you have the 2 most popular teams in Mexico, Chivas and Club America. So for CONCACAF, I mean, the only thing better would be to have Galaxy in this thing with Zlatan. I'm surprised they didn't say, you know what, instead of Toronto FC, we've decided to send LA Galaxy to play this game in the Estadio Azteca. So, yeah, they got the best of all worlds.
No, I think Kafka has what it wants, and I think either way it's going to be a very 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 big final either way.
Right.
Whatever matchup you get.
Well, yeah, I believe you are correct. I think it's a good point for us to move on. Now, we did mention earlier that we have a special guest joining us, and he is going to join us here momentarily. I'm talking about Tom Harrison, who joined us earlier today, but I do want to play that for y'all. So let me get that fired up for everybody, and we'll get that going here. And Chiquis, do you think? But before we do that, do you think both teams from Mexico make it, or just one? And if it's only one, who? I guess Chiqui stepped away. We'll get to that in a second. So let's go ahead and talk to our friend from London, Mr. Tom Harris. And like we said at the top of the show, we have with us a special guest this evening, going to talk to us not just about the World Cup, but also about Liga MX, because of course that's what we talk about here on CantinaMX podcast. Now, this particular gentleman is someone who I'm sure you guys follow on the Twitter if you're listening to this show. He is a football coach. He's also a writer and a scout, a stat aficionado, which as I'm sure if you follow him on Twitter, you'll know exactly what he talks about on that. Now, he does focus on Liga MX and the national team. He says he accidentally fell in love with the Mexican game 5 years ago, and recently has invented Performance 100, which he will talk to us a little bit. And of course, we can't have folks coming on without giving them their proper.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me lay on you.
A great entertainer.
A great entertainer.
A great humanitarian.
A great humanitarian.
And my dear friend for 25
my
years.
dearest friend for 20 years.
Tom Harrison joins us live on tape from London. Tom Harrison, sir, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on. Real honor.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you on. You're someone that a lot of us follow on Twitter. You've become very analytical with as far as numbers, crunching a lot of numbers to determine who really is not just in Liga MX, but the best players who had the best performances. A very interesting way of looking at it. But I guess my first question to you, Tom, is you said that you accidentally fell in love with Liga MX. Were you like walking down the street and your remote fell out of your pocket and stumbled, and all of a sudden there's a Cruz Azul game on, or how did you accidentally fall in love with Liga MX?
It's not too dissimilar actually. Yeah, it was 5 years ago, as I said, back in 2013, and I was around my friend's house, staying up late playing FIFA, and to be honest, we didn't have a clue what time it was, but we decided that we wanted to put some football on whilst we were playing FIFA. So we opened up the laptop, went to our favorite streaming site, and the most interesting game that seemed to be on at what was 1:30 a.m. was a game between Morelia and Toluca, and it was an incredible game. Toluca won 4-3 in the last minute, and Jefferson Montero scored what I still believe, it's certainly for what I've seen, the greatest hat trick in history. And I thought, wow, I've got to watch more of this. This is unbelievable. And I just watched more from there, and kind of the love affair began, and it's grown ever since.
Is there a particular team that you follow more closely than others in your Liga MX studies?
No, I mean, people always ask or try to guess or try to even sort of persuade me to support a certain team because they like that team. But I feel to properly support a team, you've got to have that real bond kind of connection to a team. And, I don't have any links to Mexico, really. I don't have that bond, that connection that people have. So from time to time, I like watching teams more than others, particularly people who know me will know that I love the Chiapas teams of the last couple of years before they got relegated and disappeared. But it wasn't really a support for the club as a whole. It was more just an enjoyment of watching that team play.
Now, you don't may not have a favorite Liga MX, but I'm sure that you do share a special bond with a certain side. Is that something that you're comfortable sharing with us here on the CantinaMX podcast? That you're the team that won your heart all those years ago?
To be honest, I don't have any team.
Oh my goodness, really?
Genuinely, I don't properly support anyone.
Did you have a messy breakup with the team?
No, I mean I used to like Spurs when I was younger, but and I still kind of do, but I don't have a proper connection to them, and I live on the other side of London, so I'm not able to go to many of their games. So I still kind of tell people I support them, but to be completely honest, I don't care that much.
Okay, what would be the closest club to where you live? Because London has
Premier
it's like Buenos Aires. They have like clubs everywhere.
Yeah. In terms of like the closest Premier League club right now is Chelsea to me.
Okay.
And the closest, if you know any lower league football, the closest team to me is AFC Wimbledon.
Okay.
And I can walk to their ground in under half an hour. So
is that the same? Is that the same club that became MK Dons, or is that a different club?
Yeah. That's yeah. So Wimbledon became MK Dons, and then a group of fans created AFC, or Association Football Club Wimbledon, and they rose from nowhere, like right from the bottom of English football, to being now in the same league as MK Dons. So it's an impressive story.
Wow. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Wimbledon side that had previously become MK Dons, didn't Vinnie Jones play for them? There's a real famous picture of him taking out like a 6-year-old.
Yeah, the crazy gang, they're known as. They stunned Liverpool to win the FA Cup back in the day, and they had just as they called them, a crazy gang of players who were very aggressive and known for being very physical on the pitch.
Yeah, he insists that even today that it was all ball on that play. So that is what he said. Well, listen, I'm glad you're on with us here on the CantinaMX podcast. We do appreciate you taking the time. I know that the time difference is a little wonky, but we do want to get into a little of the analytics of Liga MX first, and then we'll jump into the into the talk about Group A. So, in your assessment so far this season, what side, or is there a particular side, a particular player that you favor, you think is just having just a lights out season, or a club that's just performing better than others, and is it shown, is it reflected on the standings?
I think in terms of player that for the Clausura, the man who stands out is definitely Giannini, who's I mean, obviously it sounds obvious statistically because he is the top scorer, but he's got fantastic numbers across the board in terms of his attacking output, and I mean his goals record, which is of course the most important stat, and it always will be the most important stat in football, is phenomenal. And I think the term lights out describes it, because he's been around Mexico for many years now. I've never been overly impressed with him. I've always thought that he was a striker or forward player who had a lot of all-round abilities, fairly quick, fairly good dribbler, fairly strong, decent shooter, but didn't have anything outstanding, and didn't have anything that made him really special. And this campaign, suddenly he's gone from being just a good, solid player to, one of the best in the league, certainly. So he, for me, stands out in terms of his player stat, definitely.
Sure. And aside from the goal scoring, what particular metric do you point at and say, well, this is the reason why this guy's having such a great season?
It's the efficiency of his play, as well. It's a combination of the two. So the best attackers, what you see in terms of their numbers is a combination of efficiency and output. So efficiency is comparing how many successful actions you have to how many unsuccessful actions, like shot on target versus shot off target.
Right.
And output would be just how many times you're getting those attacking moves in, like a shot, rather than just a normal pass. And attackers, they've got to be able to do both, I find. And Giannini has that combination. You know, I'm just looking at it now, less than 50% of the time he gets the ball, he's doing a regular pass. So more than 50% of the time, he's trying something more than just a regular pass. He's trying to take on an opponent. He's trying to get a shot off. He's trying to set up a teammate with an opportunity.
So he's just
and as well as that,
not just laying it off to the guy behind him because he can't really, you know, at this point he's thinking, well, I can't really do any much more than this. I'm just gonna, you know, pass it back and we'll try and build up again. Okay.
He's getting forward and looking at the efficiency as well. I mean, out of his 100 possessions, over 4 times he's getting a shot on target, with only 2.2 times getting a shot off target. So he's almost hitting the target twice as much as he's missing the target, which is very good.
And as far as teams, is there any team that has really metrically proved themselves to the point where, like, you know, this is the reason why they're up at the top of the table right now, or are they all pretty even in that sense?
Yeah, it's difficult with teams. I'm still sort of working out the best way to use my performance 100 stuff to look at teams. I'm focusing just on players right now, to try and fully understand what I can get out of it, and to make sure I'm not, you know, making errors and making the wrong judgments from it, which can be very easily done. But I think with teams, what I get normally from looking at certain stats is you learn about the styles of play. Certainly, you know, you can see Tigres, for example, playing more of those normal passes than anyone else, because as we know, Tuca Ferretti is very safe in possession. He likes to keep the ball. He doesn't like to take too many risks when they have possession. Whereas Monterrey, they give the ball away loads, but they're also playing way more long balls than anyone else. They're playing more key passes because they're such a direct style. Tuco loves to get the ball and quickly get it forward and try and create attacks as quickly as possible. So I think I've learned more about the style of play so far. I'd say judging exact performance is very difficult for teams. I'm not there quite yet, although there's some work from someone I work with who's been looking at dispossessions and is starting to claim that dispossessions, which are when a player has the ball and they lose it without trying to pass or dribble or shoot, they just lose the ball. So it might be a poor touch, for example. They're starting to find that dispossessions is a really important metric in actually deciding how good a team is.
Sure. Now, La Chofi, is he the third best player in the world or the fourth best player in the world? La Chofi Slope.
Third. Yeah.
Third best player. Thank you.
Definitely.
Well, I know I want to, before we get into Group A, I'm sure that there are some of our panelists that want to ask you some questions. So I do want to open it up to the folks. I know that you know, bringing up La Chofi, so obviously I'm sure Rigo Ayala, who is a card carrying trophy chaser, as am I, would probably want to ask you a couple of questions. Go ahead, Rigo.
No, I'm Tom. Hello. I don't think we've ever chatted before.
No.
But I happen to be in agreement with you as far as Trophy's being the third best player in the world. So I'm glad that we have this in common. But going back to dispossessions, I know that in your top 5, or maybe even the top player that was dispossessed, Rodolfo Pizarro has been on the list, and it's been a point of contention with Chivas fans and with you. And, you know, I feel that is because he is so good with the ball that he always gets double teamed. But this isn't taken into account when you come up with this stat. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So is that something that you guys are looking to improve on that stat, or it is what it is? If you get double teamed, you get dispossessed. That's just it.
Okay, so a few things on this. Firstly, in terms of what I can do in terms of improving, that there's nothing I can do personally right now because I'm merely taking a set of stats that are put on the SofaScore website and interpreting them. So if they count something as a dispossession, then that's what I get. You know, what I see is what I get. I'm not specifically watching games and making the notations myself.
What kind of check do I have to write for you to exclude Pizarro?
But two more things. So that's number one. Number two, I do think it is still important to count these failed dribbles and dispossessions, even if it's taking on one player or taking on two players, because I think it includes the concept of decision making as well. Because you could make a very strong argument that if we keep seeing Rodolfo Pizarro being dispossessed when he's taking on two players, then why the hell is he carrying on taking on two players? Why is he not going, hey, I've got two players in front of me. That means there must be one of my teammates unmarked in another part of the pitch. Let's go and find them, rather than trying something which is really, really difficult. However,
you know, La Trophies can handle the 2-on-1 without any problem. I just want to throw that out
there. He can.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is third best in the world, and Pizarro is maybe fourth. So, you know, that's difference between the two of them right now. But the third thing on Pizarro is that, so when I said about Pizarro being highly dispossessed and having, I went back and I saw my tweet. He had like the highest rate of dispossessions in the league. He's averaging like 8 or 9 a game. It was ridiculous. He was averaging completing 33% of his passes. Now, this was pretty early in the Apertura season. Since then, he's dropped down the list in terms of dispossessions. I'm looking at it right now. He's like 30th in terms of dispossessions per 100 possessions, which really isn't that bad. And his dribble rate, so I'm just trying to find what his dribble percentage is now. He's at 55% dribble completion percentage, which is pretty good for an attacking player that's taking a lot of risks. So I think what we have here is perhaps a danger of looking at stats too early on in the season. I think he started off the season in very bad form and has picked it up, and now looks like a very good attacking player, both on the pitch and in terms of numbers.
Would you call him up to the national team?
I think I'd rather see him than Gio. If that's the decision to be made, I'd rather see him than Gio right now, because I like having the option of such a risk taker. You know, Pizarro's not going to be a starting player for Mexico. You know, there's enough attacking talent there. But in terms of someone who can come off the bench and really make an impact, he's that sort of guy who I think you can play him as a number 10. You can play him. I really like him on the left, where he can try and make runs in behind the defense and really try and get goals rather than create chances. And I think that he's a risk-taking player. He's a high-risk player, and those guys are really useful to have, particularly off the bench. So, yeah, if the choice is him or Gio, then yeah, I'm going Pizarro, definitely.
Now, shifting gears here, since I know we do have some other folks that want to get in some questions, so we do have see if our resident Americanista
Club America, they suck.
Has do you see anything in your analysis that points to another inevitable championship by Club America, or are they going to be stuck watching someone else lift the trophy this season?
It's tough on America. I mean, I think they've improved in the Clausura, actually. I mean, they've only lost once, which is very impressive. But like in the Apertura, they were really poor statistically. I mean, they were barely creating chances. Like their amount of chances they were creating during the Apertura was the same as guys at the bottom of the table. They just managed to find a way to win. They had a ridiculous efficiency. Like Peralta was finishing chances at a very, very impressive rate. I think they've definitely strengthened. But for me, I mean, they've still got their two biggest assets are Piojo with his experience, with his ability to win big games, and Guido Rodriguez, who is the best player in Liga MX for me.
Rodriguez, well, help me out here. It's
he's they're holding midfielder.
Yeah, the holding midfielder. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ronnie De Luna is our sitting crema americanista. Ronnie, do you? I know you've been saying pretty much all season, Ronnie, that you haven't been fully convinced. So it sounds like the Tom's numbers and analysis kind of reflect what you've been saying, Ronnie. You guys should be like best buds.
No, there's something that still bugs me between the overlaps and between the offense or the front, the line, the midfield line, and the forwards. Sometimes they struggle playing off the ball and stuff. Something just bugs me about it so far. I mean, I said it from the very beginning. I think they're a lock to at least make it to the semifinal. I just don't see them winning it. I don't. I hope they do, but I'm not expecting it.
That's interesting about what you say about like the midfield and the attack lines, like perhaps not connecting well. I kind of feel like that's always been an issue. Whenever I see America, especially at home, like the games are always so open, and there just seems like these massive gaps between like the defense, the midfield, the attack, and sometimes it's like it seems like there's little connection between the parts of the team. And back in the day, it used to kind of be up to Sambuesa to just sort of take the ball and just run it on the half of the pitch and try and make something happen.
I mean, personally, I've been following America since the late '80s, and I always enjoyed America better on the road because at least back then until the early 2000s, when America played at home, people would bunker. The teams would bunker. Not so much. I mean, most of the teams now attack, but for me, I always liked America when they were playing on the road because, the home teams they're like almost forced to open up a little.
Yeah.
And that's when I enjoyed America's games, the most. When they were usually on the road.
They also seem to, if I remember right, had a pretty decent team back in the late '80s, early '90s too. So
yeah,
but there was a reason why teams were shelling up to play them, for sure. Now let's switch gears here, since we do have everybody. We do want over the next few weeks here on the podcast, we want to start talking World Cup, since it is we're inside 100 days. We're about 2.5 months away, and at least for the next few weeks, we want to bring in somebody to talk about a particular team in each group. And we talked about this earlier off mic, I guess, the past couple of weeks, that really the most interesting team in the first group, Group A, is probably going to be Egypt, just because of the fact that obviously Russia's the host, but they're not particularly strong. Uruguay is Uruguay. I actually got a chance to speak to some Uruguayans yesterday about that, which we'll talk about here as well. But Egypt is one of those teams that they're not necessarily, they haven't been in a World Cup since 1990, but they do happen to have a fantastic player who's having a fantastic season in the Premier League with Liverpool and Mo Salah. And I guess my question to you, Tom, is that going to be enough for Egypt, do you think, to get them through at least to the knockouts, where they would play in all likelihood either Portugal or Spain? Or is Egypt going to have more than just Mo in order for that to happen?
Well, they need a bit more, but I think they've got a great draw. First of all, I mean, this Group A is perfectly set up for someone, probably either Egypt or Russia to take a second place spot that they probably wouldn't have got in the majority of other groups. I expect Uruguay to win this group. You'd expect Saudi Arabia to not make much of an impact, but you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I fancy Egypt. I don't think Russia are very impressive. They've had years of playing friendlies now. They haven't had World Cup qualifiers to prepare. They've got they still seem to not have much of an idea about, sort of what their best team is. They're definitely nowhere near as good as they were back when they had like Arshavin and they had that really fantastic run in the Euros. But yeah, I mean, Egypt overall, I think they're a decent team, but certainly if Salah's on form, then he can tear the Russian defense apart. Definitely.
Now, and in addition to having a favorable group, I mean, I do remember in 1990 when Egypt, I guess it was the first time they'd been in the World Cup since the 30s. I think at that point, the last time they'd made it was 38. And they were in a group with Holland, Ireland, and England. And so everyone automatically assumed, well, it's going to be either Holland, Ireland, England that end up advancing, which they ultimately did, oddly enough. But the game against Egypt was not an easy game at all for any of them. In fact, I want to say Egypt drew 2 and then lost to England like in the very last in the last minutes of the game. I mean, it was, and they were ahead too, so it wasn't like they were going to get blown out. But they do start off that they play Uruguay first, and then they play Russia, and then they end with Saudi Arabia. So they'll know what they need to do after their 2 games, and then they have their what consider their easiest game against Saudi Arabia. Now, I do want to ask you, since you do live in England, I mean, what kind of impact has Mo Salah had in the Premier League? Because he is the leading goal scorer, is he not, so far this season?
He is, yeah. It's a massive impact. I mean, there's, people are talking about the general thing is, should it be him or should it be Kevin De Bruyne who wins the Player of the Year for the Premier League? So everyone is absolutely amazed by how good he's been this season. Obviously, some people in England caught a glimpse of him before because he was at Chelsea, and I mean, he barely got a chance. He actually, I was saying to you just before about Chelsea being the nearest club to me, Premier League club, and he actually used to go to a mosque that was just down the road from me, and people always used to say, "Oh, I've just seen Mo Salah in the mosque," and stuff like this. But he was probably seen in the mosque more than he was seen on the pitch because he barely got a chance for Chelsea. And so, he did well at Roma, but people weren't expecting him to have this kind of an impact. So it's been amazing that he's suddenly become not just a fast, tricky winger, but a guy who's scoring a goal a game, if not better. And
he's the kind of player that can score, from anywhere on the pitch. He's not just a guy that finishes with the head or only is going to crash a 6-yard box. I mean, he's been scoring goals from everywhere and anywhere outside the 18. Now, my other question I have, if he does have a good World Cup, which hopefully he will, because we want to see the I guess he would be the 4th best player in the world right now behind Messi, Ronaldo, and Chofis. So we put Salah 4th. Or maybe 5th with Pizarro. I don't know, but we'll that's a point of discussion. But so if he does, so how much would Real Madrid have to pony up to get him? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. Would you consider this then to be like would they be breaking records to bring him on? Because that they're going to make an effort.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what Real are going to do this year? I guess it depends if they go on to win the Champions League or not, but. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Real go a bit mad in the window this year. I've no idea. I mean, you'd think surely not as much as Neymar, but football's gone insane in terms of transfers, and Salah, if he can keep it up, this level of form for a few more seasons, then he probably is worth 200 million. However, this might just be one ridiculous season, and he's never this good again. So
if Real Madrid and Tigres get into a bidding war, who do you think wins?
I definitely think the Mexican lifestyle might have some sort of sway. I think he could accept 500K a week less to come to Mexico.
Go hang out at the discos in Monterrey.
Yeah.
Now, like I mentioned, I did get a chance to speak to some. I was at our, what I want to sound all fresa, but I was at our club yesterday, my wife and I, and there were some folks visiting from Uruguay that we got to talking, and they are. It was interesting because they seem to be resigned to the fact that we know we're gonna make it out of the first round, but then after that we're not gonna get to play, or we're gonna play either Portugal or Spain, and that'll be that for us. And I think so they're thinking round of 16 for Uruguay, and that's it. And it was interesting because, and this is something that I've noticed that's kind of a phenomenon that I've noticed from folks in South America and even in Europe, is that they are so much higher on Mexico and Mexico's national team than any Mexican I've ever met. It was and it's just curious to me if that happens over in Europe as well. I mean, I know that at least, I mean, even here on our podcast, I mean, we're somewhat bearish on Mexico's chances in the upcoming World Cup. Is that the same sentiment, for quote unquote neutrals like pundits over in Europe? Are they bullish on Mexico, or are they bearish on Mexico? Or do they even care about Mexico? Is Mexico even make the conversation?
Well, yeah. I was gonna say, to be honest, not much. There isn't much talk about Mexico.
Right.
They aren't considered one of the favorites to win the World Cup, and so in the run up to the World Cup, all the focus is who are the favorites and who are England playing in the group.
Right.
In England, at least, that's what people talk about, and so yeah, I'm yet to really hear a mention of Mexico in terms of the World Cup.
It sounds like, Tom, that you need to be more of an ambassador then for the folks in London. You need to get the word out there, and this is actually
people.
And this is another conversation that we've had with folks that live in Europe too. Is that Liga MX does a very poor job of getting their product out there and visible. I mean, you said yourself on 2013 you had to go to your, and I'm air quoting, favorite streaming site to watch Liga MX set. So they don't have like a weekly wrap-up show that you can watch on Eurosport for Liga MX. There's, if you want to watch Liga MX, you have to do it, basically under cloak and dagger, so that no one knows that you're streaming some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's literally no media coverage whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. I'm trying to think if I've ever even seen an article in any sort of British publication about Liga MX. I can't even think of that. I think the only time I've ever seen it mentioned is I think it was The Guardian were doing a feature on like the greatest goals ever, and they had the Cardoso goal for Toluca was one of them that they featured.
Okay.
And they wrote a piece about that.
I think that was the 6-0 spanking that they gave America.
That was.
Is that the goal? It's like they do. It was like a counterattack, and they have like 30 passes on the counterattack.
That was tiki taka before it was known as tiki taka.
Right. Honestly, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
It's pretty bad.
Is that one of the reasons why you hate Toluca, Ron?
No, my hate for Toluca goes stem way before that.
Okay, so that just added to your anger then. That particular goal. Well, that's a good chance for us to button back then to Liga MX, Tom. And again, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate you coming on here on the CantinaMX podcast. So, and looking at all your, at your crystal ball and everything else, and you've crunched the numbers. Are you ready at this point to say who you think is going to end up as the Liga MX champion?
You've asked me my least favorite question in the world.
Well, it's hard because there's a Liguilla that you have to, there's a playoff that you have to deal with, which, that's something you don't necessarily have to deal with just about anywhere else in the world other than the U.S. So, I mean, it is a very difficult question to answer for sure.
Yeah, it is. I hate answering this question. I hate predicting anything to do with Liga MX because it's an unpredictable league at the best of times. And yeah, then you chuck in Liguilla as well, and it's like, I've just no idea.
Well, the easy thing to do is just say and just make all your fans happy because at least all your Chivas fans happy. But we don't have to You don't have to.
Or just pick a team that no one supports.
Exactly. I used to do
Like
that all the
Puebla-
time. I used to
Puebla
write
really
and I'd
don't
say,
win it.
and who's going to win? Morelia. Morelia was
Yeah,
always my go-to.
Q Santos.
Daniel Preciado joins us. Daniel, were you on when Tom was waxing poetic about your boy Giannini?
No, I missed it, unfortunately.
No, he said that he has been the most impressive player so far this season, at least according to his number crunch.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I think he should be coming back. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm a little bit saddened or a little bit concerned with the chances, but hopefully Nestor joins the team again, and because otherwise, I think they get probably like a 1 in 4 chance of lifting the title if everybody goes in healthy.
Right. So Tom, now we bought you a little time, Tom. So now you can say without prejudice.
And he could agree. He could agree with Santos.
He could.
I mean, that's like a team that nobody. I'm probably.
You're the only Santos fan in the U.S. Dan.
I can't be. There's
actually no, that because I saw a guy in Houston wearing a Santos shirt. I thought it might have been your dad. Honestly.
My dad's a Huila, so.
Oh my God.
That could not be him.
So all right, Tom.
My mom is from Lerdo, so.
Okay. So Tom laid out for us. No one's gonna get mad at you. You can just what does your gut tell you? Don't look at the numbers. What does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me that Rayados will finally do it.
Okay.
After a lot of near misses in recent seasons. But Santos definitely, I think, have a great chance. I really like their team. I think they're very solid squad all around. I think they're strong across the pitch. They've built a good team and done some impressive things there.
All right. So your gut says the Rayados. You're high on Santos. What about Toluca? I mean, they haven't lost since the winter solstice practically. They're on like a 6 or 7 game win streak. Is that something that you see continuing to happen for Toluca, or are they going to get cold at the wrong moment and then fizzle out?
Yeah, it's perhaps that sort of peaking too soon thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tough to keep that streak going, kind of from mid-season all the way through and into Liga and keep the form going. So I'm not. Whenever I've seen them, and I see a lot of their home games because they're on early, and they never particularly impress me. I know it's partly due to the heat of the midday kickoffs. Like the pace is always really slow, and it can be difficult to get going. And
well, it's more due to the altitude than the heat because it's like 65.
Well, the altitude too. That's true.
And then one last question I want to ask you before, because I feel like I'm a Pumas fan, and I know that Albert joins us as a Pumas fan as well. How lucky is it for Pumas that they're going to suspend relegation for the next 2 seasons, because they really have just been, for lack of a better term, crapping themselves for the past couple of years. So I mean, is it good for Pumas that they're not going to get relegated over the next couple of years? Because I just don't see there's no end in sight for this.
I think to be honest, there's worse teams. There's always Atlas and Cruz Azul and Veracruz and whoever gets promoted. I think there's worse teams than Pumas. Although,
well, good. Well,
right.
That makes me feel a little bit better. That makes me feel a little bit better. Someone
Querétaro as well. Querétaro have definitely been worse.
That's a smart thing to say there, Tom. Because Beto, he's a computer genius, so he probably would have done something to your computer.
That's right. He would have hacked in and changed your passwords and make Picolín the greatest player that ever played statistically. So maybe that's something. Well, Tom, we do want to wrap it up, but does anybody else have any questions for Tom before we let him go? Because I know it's getting late for him over in.
Actually, I do. I have a question regarding the Performance 100.
Sure.
I remember, I think it was about 8 years back. I remember reading about they were installing them over there in your neck of the woods. Like, for example, Benitez, when he was with Liverpool, I forget the name of the software, but it was basically tracking players, and they were trying to get into that whole Moneyball, type of performance. I forget the name of the software, and I remember the reason I remember this is because America was the first team in the Americas to install this technology. I haven't heard anything since, because apparently they were supposed to, I guess the technology is where they install cameras and other sensors and stuff like that with in the stadium.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least in Mexico, I didn't see that it picked up. In terms of having all those statistics, do you think there comes a point where there's just sometimes there's like too much statistics in soccer?
Yeah, I think that the general consensus within the kind of football soccer stat community right now is that there's been this massive increase, like you point out, due to improvements in technology, all these cameras, tracking chips that players have, heart monitor sensors that they wear in training, some players, all these things. Because of all these increases in technology, there's massive amounts of data. And I've actually done a bit of work, a bit of help for a couple of Liga MX clubs in terms of stats. And they've sent me like their post-match data spreadsheets. Like, here's what they just buy a package off a company that produces them, and they get sent this spreadsheet at the end of the game. And so, I've been sent it a few times, and they've gone, Tom, what do you make of this? What do you have to say? And it's like 30 pages long, for one match, and it is an extraordinarily large amount of data. And yeah, like I was saying, the general consensus within the stat community is like, we've had this massive increase in how much we've got, but we don't really know what to do with it. And I don't think anyone's yet managed to get the best out of the stats. So yeah, I totally agree. There is so much out there. I wouldn't say necessarily there's too much. I think that people just haven't worked out exactly how best to interpret data.
And you've even changed your metric, though. You've gone from like, instead of a per game, to you've gone to like the per 100 possessions. So why did you decide to make that change?
It's because I can't remember exactly when the idea came to me. I mean, I'm not claiming that I'm the first person to ever have the idea, but I do believe that from what I've seen, I'm the first person to like put it on Twitter, at least. I can't remember why, I can't remember when, but the idea just came to me that when I saw stats, it was always per 90 minutes. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, what if a player is getting the ball twice as much as another player per match? It would be really unfair to compare two players. Like in Mexico, for example, Toluca play completely through Ruben Sambueza. He's by far their key man, and he gets the ball like 60, 70 times a game. So someone like, I don't know, Oribe Peralta barely gets the ball from America like 25, 30 times. So it would be unfair to compare the two in terms of what they're doing per 90 minutes, because Sambuesa's getting the ball twice as much, if not more. But he's got more chances to get a goal, get an assist, put crosses in, complete dribbles, stuff like that. So I guess I thought, well, why not look at how many times, rather than divide player actions by minutes, divide it by possessions, how many times they get the ball. And then you can say, well, look, Sambueza and Peralta both had 100 chances to do something. Let's see what they did with those chances.
But another question, and obviously in the game of soccer, there sometimes coaches will relinquish possession, and obviously when you relinquish possession,
absolutely,
does it take into account that as well?
So it shows how many times that a player loses possession and how they do it, like how many missed passes, missed dribbles, stuff like that.
Like I'm saying, what I'm saying is, like, for example, let's say, Cruz Azul scores in the 15th minute against America. I'm just, hypothetical. There's a lot of teams that basically start sitting back and really don't, they'll just play for the counterattack. And I mean, does it take in? I mean, the statistics that they give you, does it take into consideration when a team is willingly concedes possession, because obviously that does change how many times a player will touch the ball, or and stuff like that, and how many times a player, like his teams or his teammates, will engage with him going into the attack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very good point, and the answer is no. Right now, it doesn't. I'm just looking at pure. All I've got is the capabilities to look at pure numbers across the whole season. The hope is that if you're putting together a large enough data set, then you're averaging out the amount of times that a team will be pushing for a winner, the amount of times they'll be holding on to a lead, the amount of times that a game will be even and it will be end to end. That's the hope, that if you take averages across the whole season, then you'll get that. But it's a very fair point, and I think there's a danger in taking too much in terms of pure quality and in terms of trying to look at stats and therefore saying player A is better than player B. I prefer to look at it as like player A is better at doing this than player B. And so if a manager is looking for a specific talent in a player, then that's where I think certainly my Performance 100 stuff becomes really, really useful.
It's amazing about all the statistics, Ron, Tom, both, is that with all the statistics they say, it's still amazing. I know you brought up Cruz Azul, that despite all the statistics that anybody has, Cruz Azul will still give up a late winner at the end to lose the game. So, it is amazing.
Tom, I for one am glad that you're doing this, because and the guys on the panel know this. One of the things growing up was I hated when the analysis was les pesa la camiseta. I mean, meaning that it's because the shirt's a little too big for them. And that to me was never an analysis. So I'm happy that you're that you're.
And the other side of that, Ron, is jugó bien porque le puso huevos.
Yeah, that's the type of analysis that's one of the analysis that we used to get. And that's why even Joel, who I don't think is on, we used to say that sometimes the Mexican soccer fan is a little clueless, because for years, for generations, we've gotten crappy analysis from the pundits. But having having said that, I mean, like, I used to love reading Soccer Mania, because they used to have really good statistics. The guy Jorge Huitquet, I don't know if you know him.
I don't.
You should look him up on Twitter. He's a guru when it comes to statistics. But going like, for example, with Cuauhtemoc Blanco, I'm just one of the things that statistics wise was, like, for goals, he scored I don't know how many 30-something plus goals with the national team. When you compare that to Chicharito, I would consider Cuauhtemoc Blanco better than Chicharito for one reason, because when you looked at the goals that Cuauhtemoc scored versus the goals that Chicharito would score, Cuauhtemoc Blanco would score them when I would give Mexico the lead, or to tie the game, as opposed to, let's say, Mexico's winning 2-0 or 3-0, and you're just adding on, you're just tallying on. I mean, to me, like, for example, the goals that Zague would score with the national team, and to a certain degree even Chicharito, it's like, I should say later on Chicharito, not in the beginning, because in the beginning it looks like he was on that route of becoming better than Cuauhtemoc Blanco as a goal scorer. With the statistics, and you saw this in baseball, with the home runs, the walk-off home run or the game-changing home run, where it's like, that's how you were able to determine if a player is really clutch. It's like, to do something when it really matters. And I guess, with the statistics that you get from Liga MX, you guys, like, are you guys looking into that? Like, the player that actually gives a pass when it really matters, or scoring when it really matters?
You should keep in mind, though, Ronnie, that he's had a lack of opportunities too.
Who?
He hasn't been the undisputed starter in all those critical games.
No, I'm not trashing Chicharito.
I'm just saying that's a fact. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, John. I mean, you're the World Cup encyclopedia. Hasn't he been oftentimes coming a substitute?
He's only had one start, I believe, in his World Cup career. Most of the other times he's been coming off the bench.
Somos muy chingones, he gave us the lead. He gave us the lead against France. So obviously that that's
but his only start was against Argentina. His only start was against Argentina.
Yeah, So I mean, I guess that's what because right now, like for example, in baseball, you get some statistics. I personally think more than 3/4 of them are worthless. I mean, I care about that that game winning that hit or that run that that's.
But you do have a kind of like a clutch metric, don't you, Tom? Haven't you put up at least in comparisons of players that have had quote unquote more important touches or touches that led to more things at more critical times in the game?
Yeah. So what I've done recently, I uploaded the top 10 today, was goals and big chances created, adding the two together per 100 possessions, who did the most. But that doesn't take into account what was mentioned, and it's a fantastic point about clutch players. And there's people who've done stuff before, studies before, about rather than looking at just pure numbers of goals and assists or big chances created, I prefer to using them to assist, because assists are very dependent on how good your teammates are. Instead of doing that, you look at how many points a player is earning from their goals and their assists.
Right.
So rather than just pure numbers of goals, you're looking at how many points those goals are earning their team, and that then creates that sort of clutch figure, because you're saying that if a player is just adding the second, third, fourth goals in games, then they're not that worthwhile. They're not earning your team many points. However,
Chicharito may have had at least initially with the national team, maybe kind of fallen off of that. But you ask any Manchester United fan, and they will tell you that he was absolutely clutch, because a lot of his goals, as Ron described, were either match winners, match equalizers, or goals that ended up putting them ahead. I mean,
absolutely,
at least in his first couple of the two championships that he won with Manchester United, he was directly responsible for about 10 or 12 of those games that they won in both of those seasons. So that is something that if you could figure out a way to calculate that would be a very interesting thing to see, not just in CantinaMX, across the whole board.
There is, but it's just something that basically just takes a really long time, because you've got to go through the game and say, like, okay, this guy scored the winning goal. That means he earned 3 points for his team. Give him 3 points, and you have to do this for like every game. So, sounds
like you need an intern. Sounds like you need an intern. Sounds like you need an intern, Tom. You need to get.
We need a crowdfund and hire some peeps for you, Tom.
I need to get paid myself first before I can hire anyone else.
Tom, where can people follow you on Twitter? What is your Twitter handle?
You can follow me at TomH_36.
And do you have a website where folks can learn more about your per 100 tabulations?
I don't right now. Perhaps I should get one.
All right. Well, but you are very active on Twitter, and you do post a lot of that. And is it just CantinaMX that you're following right now, or are you starting to expand a little more into other areas, other leagues?
So in terms of the kind of stats and analysis, I'm focused on CantinaMX, but yeah, I am looking to expand a bit more. I've done some stuff for some Premier League, and I'm hoping to get it to get. My aim is to get faster in creating graphics, and if I can get faster in creating the graphics, then I can start to produce more for different leagues and try to expand out and see if I can get some more followers from around the world and see if that sparks people's interest.
Do you have plans for the World Cup?
I'm hoping that there will be lots of good stats available, and I can continue to make some stuff. So I don't know where I'll be or what exactly I'll be doing during the World Cup.
And my last question for you is England. What's going to happen? How disappointed are England fans going to be this summer, or are they not going to be disappointed at all?
I actually think that we will get to the quarterfinals and people will be fairly satisfied.
Okay.
Regarding your graphics, you may want to reach out to David from Mex Sport. He's actually he's a countryman of yours. Came to the World Cup in '86 as a fan and somehow decided to stay, and he had his camera, and he probably has the biggest sports photo company in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
He was the go-to guy.
Um,
He was the go-to, or still is the go-to guy in football and in Mexican sports.
yeah. So what's
I
the
met him.
name?
I actually Mex Sports photo. His name is David. Yeah, I met him actually at the 2010 World Cup. Nice guy.
Wow, thank you.
Ronnie sounds like he's on the treadmill again.
No, I'm actually outside, man, in Philly. It's cold. I'm just walking. The park. I'm walking the park right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, thanks,
God, it's
Tom. We do appreciate you joining us. Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we let you go?
I just want to say thanks a lot for making time for me. I know you had to adjust your schedule a bit to incorporate me in my annoying time zone. So thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to be on and really fun to chat about plenty of stuff.
Well, we do appreciate you coming on, and thanks again. Well, we'd love to have you on again. Maybe we'll have you on when England surprises everyone and makes it to the semifinals in this in this summer's World Cup. So thanks again for coming on. We do appreciate it.
I'd love to come on again. Definitely.
That was Tom Harrison joining us. Tom Harrison joining us from London, England, on the CantinaMX podcast, live on tape. We do thank Tom for coming on and giving us a very detailed explanation as to how he and what he looks forward to determine as to whether or not a way to, I guess, have some metrics for some players in their performance. And glad to see that he has taken such a keen interest into Liga MX. So we do appreciate him jumping on with us here on the CantinaMX podcast, and we do thank all of you for coming on and listening with us. But we do have a little bit more to get to, and I'm glad that we have a couple of other folks that have joined us. It's kind of like the second shift has come in. We had the East Coast shift, and now we have the West Coast shift. So glad to have on with us. Daniel Preciado joins us once again. Daniel, how are you, sir?
Pretty good, John. Good evening, everyone.
Glad to have you with us, Daniel. Now he spoke very highly, metrically, of your boy Giannini, saying that not only is he scoring, but he's making so many other plays that are leading to scoring opportunities. He's not just a cazagol. He's not just a guy.
He's obviously not, but he's now an official friend of the show. So, but no, I guess he isn't exactly getting into the realm of prediction based on the numbers, right? He's just kind of like food for thought kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he and I can't speak for Tom, and maybe some of the other folks can help it, but yeah, it just seems like what he's able to provide is a certain way, a different way of looking at a player's performance, based purely on the on some statistics, as far as possession and passing and distance run, and how much they run in dribbles and tackles, etc. So it's it is fascinating, and he did mention that, and it's something that we will discuss here at length. That maybe this boy Pizarro should get the shot over Giovanni in the upcoming World Cup, and again, Pizarro had a man of the match performance last night. So it was something that I found very interesting. Very interesting that Rigo and some of his fellow Chivarmanos were saying that Tom's stats were skewed and unfair when it came to Rodolfo. Did I say Rodolfo Pizarro? So we'll see how that
Yeah,
plays out.
I thought the overall, I guess, grade on Pizarro was mixed. I do agree with this point though. As far as where I'm starting to kind of sway a little bit into if it was between the two, between Gio and Pizarro, that you'd probably want to, on some level, Pizarro does add a bit more spark, or es más atrevido at this point in their careers.
Right.
And later in the game, it's probably, if you're calling on someone, on either of them, it's probably because you need that very thing.
I don't think Pizarro has good shooting skills, or danger on goal as Gio does, or has shown in the past. But as far as ball skill and dribbling, 10 times better than Gio.
I can't even remember the last time Giovanni even took a shot at goal for Mexico. I mean, it's been like 2 or 3 years. It's been a while.
And I don't think the way they're playing allows him to really flourish. I always thought that he's always looked best when on the counterattack.
It is a great big mess, and of course, who better to talk about a big mess like what Osorio's done with the national team and moving players in and around positions is of course one of his staunchest fans and fiercest defenders. I'm talking about Joel Aceves, who joins us from California. Joel, how are you, sir?
¿Qué hubo, John? Llegué a tiempo para barrer. So,
yeah, you're here. Yeah, last one out. Please turn off the lights.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, sweep and put the stuff away. Yeah, got to listen to some of the show though.
Well, good. And are you, Joel? Since we do have you on, are you cautiously optimistic that Chivas might be able to eke out a result in the Conca Champions, or are you reserved to the fact that se acabó?
No, I did predict they would reach the final.
Okay.
And fortunately for them, they've been playing better on the road than at home.
Right.
So I wasn't too surprised to see Chivas struggle because they've been doing it at home for all season long and even from a big part of last season. So that was no surprise. But, on the away game, I think we will probably see a different game. Más abierto.
Okay. Do you think not having La Chofis in the home leg and then hopefully having him in the away leg, do you think he will make the kind of difference that all of us trophy chasers know he will? ¿Te vas a subir al camión?
No. It's too late for that. I criticized him. Ya me aguanto. Ahora me tengo que aguantar.
Mira, siempre hay espacio en el Chofi Express.
En el Chofi Express.
Sí.
No, but I was seeing some of the comments from the Energy Drink FC coach, and he was saying how, he regards Pizarro as Chivas' best player, and they were gonna have something for him. So I think if they do that, having someone like Chofis it's just someone else for them to worry about.
That is a very good.
Yeah, and I think very good point. Yeah, and I think what a lot of the fans we've been waiting for is for Orbelin, because he hasn't been the same, man. Ever since he got called up to the Gold Cup, his stock just dropped, plummeted.
Es que le pesa la camiseta.
O le pesa or too much partying, man.
No le pone huevos, Joel. Those are the two biggest reasons. Le pesa la camiseta y no.
Sometimes it's discipline. I've grown to know that.
Well, he's only 22.
Yeah, and I mean we've said it before how that big party, that Chivas, it's like a frat house. All the players, once they start making it, once they start becoming known, they're involved in
drunk and stupid. There's no way to go through life, son.
Yes.
Yeah, we even saw with Fabian, when they were calling them, and I forget what they were calling him, but I remember the memes where when he went on loan to Cruz Azul, and they had a meme, and Fabian said, yo traigo las copas, and he had like all these drinks.
When was the last time you partied with Chivas, Joel?
No, that's Rigo, man. He constantly travels down there.
He travels on the Trophy Express is what Rigo
travels in el VIP.
Well, here's the thing. I've always thought that when you're an athlete, and obviously Orbelin is a player that's talented. Is he the kind of player that's just going to rely on his talent and not improve, or is he a player who's going to be serious about the profession and understand that yes, I'm talented, but so is everybody else, and I have to work on my game in order to improve. And it's not just doing stuff on the field. I mean, you have to change the way that you as Chiquis has put out to us many times. I mean, but it's not just a matter of that. It's also what kind of food you eat, etc. I mean, even Messi in his early 20s, understood that there's no way that he can, play soccer and play well on a diet of steak, French fries, and Coca-Cola. So he had to completely change the way that he.
Yeah, yeah. Chicharo too. When he first left for Manchester and he brought all his family over and he was just concentrated on playing, which we see a big difference with like how we saw pictures of Neri partying with the Wags in the limousine with Sven, and then we had Giovanni. Those pictures that came out where he was like shit-faced, it's completely gone.
Pobrecito. Yeah, but I mean, if you're in the public eye, you just can't be. You can't do that stuff.
I understand. I think it gets somewhat difficult, especially if you're that young and you're living alone for the first time, and
you're making a pile of money where you can just I mean, basically, you can, at that snap of the finger, you can get whatever you want.
And offers, people inviting you everywhere for free,
right?
Clubs, anything, just.
I got to tell you, it got really, really tiring for me when I was living that life.
When you go to the parking lot and there's like 10 women waiting for you, man. So yeah, that's why I'm not
10?
overly
Come on.
critical.
Oye, Joel, por favor, Joel. Only 10?
Well, a different 10 every other day, but that's kind of where they're at, That's their ambiente.
That reminds me of that movie, Santiago Muniz. What's that movie with Gol?
Which they're going to remake it. They're remaking it. I saw part 3, man. It was an abomination. But they're remaking it, and I think he's going to be in Liga MX this time.
Did he not take Mexico to the World Cup in part 3?
No, that was the plan. But then something, I think Adidas was one of the main sponsors, and they pulled out. And
hard not to have them.
It looks so bad, man. Like you could see the blue screen because they used footage from the World Cup. I think the 2006 World Cup, or 2006 or 2010. They used footage for one of those World Cups, and the footage it's just bad. Like you could tell they were using a green screen. It doesn't look like a big budget film, man. It looks like student film.
Well, that is unfortunate. Well, before we move on to our last topic,
I'm gonna just finish.
Hang on. Oh, hang on. All right.
Wait, there's more. No, it's weird. If you're seeing the movie, like the first 10, 15 minutes, it's some of the players recording like a vampire movie. So there's nothing to do with soccer. You're like, I had to take out the DVD to make sure, like, to have the right movie. I thought they se equivocaron de estampa.
Right.
But yeah, that's it, man.
That reminds me years ago right when South Park first started, and I think it was going to be their first April Fool's, and it was on the night that they aired. And everyone was talking about, this is going to be this great South Park April Fool, and they did a 30-minute show of Terrence and Phillip, which is awful. I always thought that was just one of the great troll jobs in the history of trolling. Was the Terrence and Phillip 30-minute South Park episode on April Fool's Day. So that happened that was 20 years ago. That was a long time ago. We won't discuss that. What we should discuss now before we jump and talk about what happened in Los Angeles over the weekend. Do any of you guys have? Yeah. Do any of you guys have anything else to say on any of the information that Mr. Harrison was able to kindly provide for us this evening on the CantinaMX podcast?
I'm just waiting for the stats on poniéndole huevos. I want to see that infographic.
I I do believe it's an intangible, but there's certainly something to be said about that. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
And do we
Yeah,
have to measure the players? You know.
Ronnie was dissing the analysts that use Pesa la Camiseta and Gaja and all that. But I think that's a legit. I mean, that's a legit thing to say. Just like Joel was talking about Fabian
Well, I
and
mean,
drinking and taking care of your body.
But it's their go-to thing to say. Guy has a bad game. Well, it's because but guy has a bad game for Chiapas. Oh, it's because es que él es chapaneco.
Yeah, you should mix it. You should mix it in. But I think, and no disrespect, because I appreciate all the
that bothered
stats
you
that
a lot
nerds.
because you value Webbles more than anything, don't you?
No, I think it's definitely like a big part.
How do you measure it though?
I
guess I don't dispute the that want and desire are critical in
Soccer
success,
nerds.
But how do you measure it?
Soccer nerd says on the chat. He says with stats you can measure it. Let me see what he says. Can be easily calculated with a matter of distance traveled, how many duels and dribbles a player was involved in. So I mean I think there are stats that you can take into consideration, Gadra and all that, but
well, you know what they say with that poniéndole huevos, it's like, if sometimes some of the players, especially players that dribble a lot, a defender's gonna start tackling them hard, and some of these players will shy away from that. So that's one of the things. And on the opposite end, if you're the defender and you're getting burned, that would be like, either the ball passes or he passes, but not both. So that's a big part of it.
I appreciate the whole stats that they come out with, but I'm not too into it. I don't really get involved in reading it and the stuff Chol does. And I mean, it's sort of neat, but it's not something like, oh wow.
Well, I mean, that's why he said at the very beginning of what he was talking about. He said, the most important and measurable stat are goals. Period. End of story. I mean, it's it is something. But I mean, I do think that when it comes to looking for a certain kind of player, stuff like this, I think is incredibly helpful. And I think I think it's more helpful for clubs and scouts than it is necessarily for fans. Unless if you're like a real granular kind of.
Or if you like to bet, John, because I mean, I use some stats to. I did. What was it? About 2 months worth of Chihuahua results.
Joel, you're a sick man if you bet on Liga MX games.
I was only off by 2 points. So I had Chivas making 10 out of 21 points. They did 12. And a lot of that was more based on stats on how they do on certain games.
Right, but I guess the other question is, when it comes to stuff like this, does past results indicate future performance?
Not really, but I do think they weigh in. Like the 2-0, man, we had that like 10 years. We couldn't get that off of our backs.
Also, the number crunching at least seems to me that it's still relatively new. So I think with some refinement, I think you might be able to get more value from it, even from a team performance standpoint.
It's funny you say that, Dan, because I got a chance to produce the Dynamo broadcast over the weekend for Dynamo, and I had a really good bug operator, so I knew I could have him do more things than usual. But then I was thinking, outside of possession and shots on goal, shots. I mean, what? I mean, to me, it's like there's so few stats that are worth keeping track of. I mean, like during an actual game, that are worth keeping track of. But what I do want to do, and I was hoping to see if I can figure out a way to do this. I mean, the thing that I really like are like heat maps and stuff like that. I mean, to me, I've always thought that those are a much better indication as to how a player has performed in the first half. And you can see like if you can overlay like passes and stuff on that. I mean, I think that to me would be incredibly fascinating to see. You know, look at a player like Xavi's, you know, first half heat map. You know, when he was just, you know, at the absolute peak of his game. I mean, it had to have been just incredible.
That also goes to tactics.
Well, sure, but I mean, that stuff to me exactly, or you know, what happens if Xavi's having an off game, or they've figured out a way to shut him down, and you show his heat map, and so, but you know, here he is, you know, last week when they won 4-0, and here's now they're down 1-0 in the first half, and look at you know, that kind of stuff. I think that to me is a really good way to tell a story of what's happening in the game, because that's, you know, as a producer. You know, that's one of the things we want to be able to convey is, you know, let's tell the story of this game. And, you know, stats are used so much more in other sports. I mean, and they're a great way of showing that. You know, it's a very quantifiable way of doing that. But in soccer, they're just not that many. You know, as you said, I mean, someone could have 70% possession, but be down 2-0. You know. Why is that? Well, let's look at some other things.
And just the way the game is narrated too, it's something that's kind of foreign. You don't hear a lot of statistics being given to build some kind of narrative as far as how the game is going. It's just not something you see that much in soccer. But I do think there's room for it, though.
Yeah, I do think so as well. And to me, like I said, I mean, I would love to be able to incorporate those things.
I didn't know that about Pizarro, that he had, I guess at one point was one of the players with the highest amount of turnovers, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how he put it, but
you know, and as sloppy as and he was named man of the match yesterday, and I think he had a great game, but he was extremely sloppy last night too. So that when he did mention that stat, I mean that was the first thing I thought of was, man, he not only did he get dispossessed a lot, he dispossessed himself a lot. Like he made a lot of just very.
And you picture that tendency with the national team, and that's kind of scary. I mean, yeah, you're putting him in there because he might do something great, something brilliant, but his tendency to lose the ball.
Do you guys think that Mr. Analytical Juan Carlos Osorio diligently reads Tom's statistical analysis? I bet you he
does.
Yeah, I bet you he does too.
Or he's got someone looking at it.
One of his Hugo Sanchez is looking at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're a guy who really likes stats, you'd be kind of a fool not to use as many resources as you can.
Right.
But I do think it's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Finish your thought. No.
That's cool. Go ahead. You got the conch.
Well, I was just going to ask you, Joel. You know, based on what you've heard and what you've seen, do you still say final in Conca Champions and Liguilla or no Liguilla, Joel?
Well, I think that's going to be a big choice to make with between Almeida, Jirafa, and Higuera. You know, where do they put all their guns? Because the MLS teams are not going to play this week. They're resting. The league let them have the week off so that they could be ready for the return legs. And I think that's going to be a bit, you know, key for Chivas as well, to rest their players. So I mean, I think
they are playing Veracruz. They are playing Veracruz. So
but they're playing where, in el Puerto Jarocho?
No, they're playing in La Perla.
Oh,
La Perla del Occidente.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with Veracruz, man? But I mean, I guess we'll tell right there what they chose. But to me, I think that's the key to rest their players. So if, you know, they echan toda la carne al asador against Veracruz, because they are 2 points away from eighth place.
Here's the problem with that though. What happens to Lobos Buap if they see Veracruz playing, you know, Chivas B basically, and then they end up beating them?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to. Does the relegation battle even matter for Chivas at this point? I mean, is it something that they can consider when they make this decision, or no le importa?
I don't know about that, John. I just think their minds is, but I do feel that it'll be more marketable to get to the Clubs World Cup.
Okay.
You know,
they can play Liga next season.
How many points are they away from 8th?
2.
So they could afford to drop points.
I don't know, man. Liga MX is crazy.
No, I get it,
From
but
one
I
week
mean,
to the next, you could drop.
But playing all your starters is still guaranteed that you're gonna beat Veracruz.
Yeah,
especially at home too, where there hasn't been a really good home field advantage this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like for me, I would concentrate on the Conca champions, just because this team hasn't won an international title in like 60 years, and
how long
that would be pretty big. About 60 since. No soy bueno con los números, but like late 50s, I think 59 or something was the last time.
No, it was 62.
62, I think.
Yeah. And then how many has America won in that same period, Juan?
Oh man, why are you doing this to me?
Dang.
He won quite a few, including hasta con ayuda. With the
I believe the
he won't
number
let
is
me
7.
lie.
I believe the number is 7.
Oh, God dang.
So we're all in agreement. Chivas definitely has to go for this.
That was savage,
champions.
John. I think that's pretty savage from John. He must be getting casino money somewhere.
No, that's I just saw that interesting stat. As you were saying, it has been over 50 years since since Chivas had won anything of the sort in this tournament.
They did reach a Libertadores final, so you kind of have that. Second place. You got that second place medal, but it's not the same as
you know who celebrates subcampeonísimos? You know who celebrates subcampeonísimos? You know who celebrates that, Joel?
I'm afraid I just blew myself.
Come on.
No, but I mean, I'm just trying to say it's not like they haven't done anything,
No, I understand.
We do have to note that for a lot of those years, there was no international tournaments. CONCACAF stopped being played regularly, and Libertadores only came in late 90s. So that's been part of the reason. But yeah, but then when this tournament, when they did start playing them, the team.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. That was the level of excuses there was bordering on Americanista. That was impressive. That was impressive. That was impressive.
Oh man.
No, so you're right. It's a very important tournament for them to win. I mean, and then then they get the chance to be humiliated by Barcelona or Real Madrid
not even that,
or by El Shabawi of Morocco. That could certainly happen too, right?
Saying Zoo. Yeah.
Yeah, but still making it, that'll be. And I know a lot of fans don't like, le quitan mérito a la Copa, but it's still important.
Well, obviously, I mean, I don't think the fans are saying that now because you don't see a midweek game at the OmniLife packed to the rafters when they're playing, Red Bulls. So it obviously means something to the fans.
Same with Copa MX. We didn't like it until we started winning it.
Yeah. So, and one thing that even Rigo pointed out is that Almeida is he's a tournament coach.
Oh yeah, he's that's the whole Copa MX team. That's how he's looked way better because if you look at his league stats, they're not that good, man. But I think he's looked good just because he won the 2 Copas, he made a final, and then he won that. I think it was called a Super Cup or something like that.
Right.
So that's made him look better than he.
Well, it's
Not
funny
saying
you
he's
mentioned
bad
that, Joel,
coach,
because
but
I do remember years ago you posted a pictures like this is why I don't want more players like Chicharito to go to Europe, and you posted a picture of an empty trophy case.
what?
And the guy
Wait,
that
that
has
was
filled the
me.
trophy case. I'm sorry.
What? That was me.
You did, yeah. This was 7-8 years ago.
You're talking about big soccer.
Yeah, and so I saw that now this guy has done that, and he's done that with a style where instead of doing the homegrown players, they've decided to do the homegrown and buy big name players, and so far it's worked out for them. And I know that the regular, and again, you don't have to have a great regular season in Liga MX to have success.
No,
As
just
long as you
make the
do well,
liguilla.
yeah, exactly. So maybe Almeida is proof positive of that. All right, enough with the Chivas talk. Enough with the Chivas talk. Let's switch gears. Let's wrap it up here tonight with what happened over in Los Angeles over the weekend. It was, and Tráfico, the first ever Tráfico played at noon LA time on a Saturday. I mean, Joel, how on earth did people make it to the game on a noon on a Saturday to be ready to go? I mean, what time would you have to leave
I don't know,
to
because
get there in time to make
that one was played in Carson, and I never been down that area at that time. But anyone on the 5, you were gonna be there a while. Anyone taking the 5.
So Carlos Vela puts the LAFC team up 2-0 with 2 terrific, outstanding goals. Just outstanding goals. They get a third one on autogol. It's 3-0. And, after the game, Carlos Vela admitted that we had no idea how to manage the game. After that, we didn't know what to do. So you cannot lose a game 3-0. And you all know what happened after that. LA gets a couple, and then they put in their freshly signed Swedish Bundestar, who has played on every all. How we always joke about coaches in Liga MX have the punch card with as many teams as they've coached, what's his name, Luis Fernando Tena and Ruben Omar Romano they probably coached for 10 or 11 teams. Well, Zlatan has that same punch card, but his punches are like the G16 teams in Europe. I mean, the amount of huge clubs he's played for is insane, and it goes down to Gaucho, of course, and gets it. So, what did that do for the sport of soccer locally in California? Did it get people to talk more about soccer, Joel, more than you've ever heard before, or was it just just a little bleep in the wind? It happened Saturday, and yeah, se acabó.
It's hard for me to know that, as far as how much hype there was, because I didn't really hear that much talk from people. But I'm not, I wasn't in a position to be hearing the casual fan, talk.
Right. Well, I mean, even just walking, going to the stores and stuff. I mean, did you might overhear other people talking about it?
No, man, it's LA. They're more likely to be talking about some TV show than sports.
Kim Kardashian or something.
Yeah.
Well, we'll ask a little further south down in Escondido. So, Dan, I know that you probably listen to the sport talk a little more than Joel does. Did it have any kind of impact outside of the world of soccer in Southern California?
I think I may have heard a mention, but it's not a. It was a blip.
A blip. Okay.
People
so it happened.
Talking,
it was cataclysmic on Saturday afternoon, but by Saturday night,
talking about people.
And I think the only reason that one of the show that I happen to listen to regularly, one of the hosts is a soccer fan. I think he follows the EPL.
Right.
So yeah, he happened to mention it, but it's not It's not a topic of conversation that kind of gets any real time.
Right. I'm just curious because I mean, at least nationally, it got a lot more play. I was just curious to see how it played locally. Ronnie DeLuna rejoins us from Philadelphia. Ron, living in Philly, was there any kind of a more abnormal reaction to anything that happened in El Tráfico and in Philly? Like, did they actually, in other words, did they talk about it in Philly at all that you're aware of? Like did it make like the front page of the paper, that kind of stuff?
Mute, boy.
I guess Ron does not.
Ron.
Ron,
you know what, John?
Sorry about that.
I don't know. Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, not really. I did watch a little bit of the game though.
Yeah. I mean, they were great goals. Now I do think that the second goal probably should have been looked at by at least to verify that whether or not he was offsides or not. But the conspiracy theorist in me is said that the VAR got a call from the commissioner. Don't you dare look at that. But that's obviously pure speculation. But it was a great result for them. And to me, the very unfortunate thing about that is that it obscured a terrific performance by Carlos Vela, who is playing really, really, really great, inspired soccer. And then Joel, I believe that you are of the thought that it really doesn't matter where you're playing. If you're playing that well, then it's gonna be reflected. And obviously, that seems to be the case with Carlos Vela.
It's that saying, el que es gallo donde quiera canta, or something to that effect.
Right. So he scores the 2 goals, but then it's like and then was there some other Chiquis? Was there some other play where did Zlatan like kick him in the face or kick a ball at him? Was there were their fingers pointed? Did something happen between the two that?
Yeah, there was a physical play. There was a physical, I guess, challenge to the ball or something, and Zlatan, of course, put Vela on his butt. And I guess he apparently was crying to the ref, and Zlatan was giving him a stare and pointing at him, talking to him, and pretty much made him look like a little kid. And then right after that, he scored the goal. Not just physically, but like mentally, like put him in his place mentally. Like, get out of here. And Zlatan is great. Just if you a lot of people thought Borghetti got the stare from what's his name, the U.S. player, and that Borghetti looked like just got totally punked. Yeah, Onyewu. Gooch stared him down, made him look like a little punk. This was even worse for Vela, which it sort of got blown off and not really taken into consideration. But it was sort of funny.
You saw it, you recorded it, you remembered it, you will bring it up.
Yeah, that was a highlight for me.
You're gonna be like Howard Cosell when poor. Anytime there was a good hit by a linebacker, he'd have to remind Gifford. That reminds me of the time that Chuck Bednarik just, blah blah.
Well, I'm not as high on Vela as you guys seem to be, and as other people are, just for the 2 goals and what he's been doing in the few games. I need to see more consistency, and it's great that he scored.
I think your problem, is that you just need to start getting high on anything.
Yeah, let me find something that I can get high on, but maybe it'll happen in the World Cup. But I try to be level-headed.
Sure. But by trying to be level-headed, then that automatically. But you always tend to be level-headed, but you always you never. It's always like, well, he's not as great as people say he is. That seems to be your standard go-to response. I mean, if you're level-headed, you should also say, well, he's not as bad as people say. That never seems to come out. You always want to bring people down, Chiquis. Why is that?
I've never said he totally sucks. I've never said Vela sucks, or that he.
You just said Vela sucks just now, right now.
I didn't.
No. I have to take. I might have a drop statement.
Even I was not arguing, but I was going back and forth with what's her name on Twitter about Vela coming to MLS, and everyone's saying, "Oh, he's going to go downhill. His skill is going to get worse and worse." and 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 I told her, I said, well, those are probably the same people that said he should never be called up to the World Cup after refusing at one time. They're just going overboard. They're going crazy. You got to be level-headed and just say, okay, he's going to the MLS. That means he's not going to improve and get better with better competition like he would have in Europe. He's just going to stay, level, and he's still a great player, a good player.
Does it really matter for a player who's spent his entire career in Europe to play the 3 months before the World Cup playing in MLS? I mean, is it really going to have that much of an effect on him? Vela or anybody else?
It could very well, or it could not. You never know.
But you know what, Al? You talk about improve. I think you reach a certain age where you don't, ya das el tope. There's no more really improving to do. You just have to maintain yourself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe getting burnt out could be a possibility.
But you know what? He's been.
Well, I think that's the reason he went to LA personally. But go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, John got it right there. That's been one of the top things for Vela, to be, at least, to be in a place where he's enjoying himself. So he's always valued that more than what team it is, or making whatever tournament. He's always wanted to be in a position where he's enjoying himself, and that's what they've been talking about. Him with his family living, I think they live in Westwood, and he's just out of the public eye for his personal stuff, and then he gets to go to the games.
Joel, it was unfortunate for you. Unfortunate for you that you had to go to the bathroom when they took that picture at Dodger Stadium with Tommy Lasorda and Vela and J-Lo.
And J-Lo and hey, when we were talking about, when I was telling you guys he would come here, I told you guys this was gonna happen. I don't know if you guys remember, this was last year in podcast.
I'm telling you, you are the Walter Mercado of this podcast.
I was like, we're gonna be seeing him in the, just he's probably in line to do the first pitch the way Gio did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I also noticed, Joel, that there was a decidedly Hispanic group of supporters with LAFC. I'm not saying that. I mean, that LAFC doesn't have Hispanic supporters, but it does seem like that there were quite a bit. Is that a concerted effort by the LAFC folks to?
You know what they did? They reached out to the disenfranchised fans. So there was a few groups after Chivas USA folded, and the LAFC went to the support groups, and they said they wanted them on board, and they they kept in contact with them as the team was being built. And los invitaron a lonches y todo eso.
Yeah, I heard there was a Raider Nation type of scumbag fans that were at the stadium.
Roosters or something.
Yeah, they beat up some old man and some lady, like totally assaulted them and then ran off or something. Some incidents occurred, I guess.
And when is the next El Tráfico? Because the next El Tráfico will be in the new stadium. Have you had your personal tour of the new stadium yet, Joel?
No, I haven't, man, and I've been lagging it in applying for accreditation, because this to me could be the big one, with all the Mexican players.
So you're expecting more Mexican players after the World Cup to?
No, because I want to see Gio and Jonah on the field, as well.
Sure.
But yeah, after the World Cup, I do think we're gonna see at least one or two more Mexican nationals in MLS.
So you got two more chances, Joel. You have one on July 26th. That'll be at the new stadium. And then back in Carson on August 24. And of course, it would be fantastic if they would play also in the U.S. Open Cup. And I got to say, whoever came up with the name El Tráfico is just genius.
Well,
Genius.
you know what? I just wanted to make a quick point because I was at the first El Clásico del Plástico, and that was Chivas USA versus Galaxy, and that was just poorly done, man. Everything about that club, which is like lack of vision from Chivas headquarters to just they never knew how to make that team work. Even when it was apparent that
just slap their name on it and just say, well, people are going to come because it says Chivas. Was
yeah,
that their attitude?
That's pretty much what they did, and they ended up Hans took a lot of the blame for that. You know, it's a bit unfair, but they had him, you know, get players from Chivas Cantera and take over there. But of course, he wasn't allowed to take some of the better ones, and it was a Dutch-built team because then Thomas Rongen did the same, but all of the players that Rongen got, all of those guys ended up being in the U.S. national team, like, you know, and
like Gleshtan and
Gusan and the Mexican guy that was the Tigres.
And isn't the coach for Toronto? Isn't he a former Chivas USA player?
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Vanny?
Yeah, so that's kind of messed up what they did to Hans. Sort of threw him under the bus there. But yeah, that Clásico was just poorly made, man. Some of the games were fun, but that team was very weak. You know?
How did you consider yourself a Chivas USA fan, or were you there as an impartial observer? You did.
No,
okay.
I covered them for like 3 years. 3 years straight, man. By the third year, it was apparent that team was, you know, the front office just seemed pretty powerless or clueless to build a competitive team. So then that was that. The Chivas girls were no longer enough to keep me there.
Did they have any kind of outreach with the LA folks to?
No, I never saw any. If they did, I don't think it was that strong. I think LAFC is the one that's doing more, you know, just building their own complex at Cal State. And we were talking, Juan was telling us, Profe Cambiarrayas last week,
right,
about, you know, how they have some affiliate teams. So I think they're doing the better job. Chivas USA was more like a market employee type of thing.
Like maybe the deal was, you know, he thought that if he had Chivas USA in LA that did well, then he could open 2 more Chivas USA franchises in different cities like Houston and you know, in Phoenix, you know, kind of like the way he does. I mean, then he has like the whole country covered in Chivas USA franchises.
Yeah, I mean, they were thinking of something like that because even MLS had reached out to America at that point, and they were thinking of like Águilas Miami or something like that, which I think the America franchise would have worked better. Just because I think the whole,
Houston, I think, was a site.
Houston was, yeah, but they decided not to, and they're probably regretting it right now, seeing how much those franchises cost.
Sure. By the way, Ron, I did notice your subtle jab when we had Tom Harrison on when you were talking about some form of metric when teams are, you know, ahead, behind, or drawing. When you said, what happens if Cruz Azul scores a goal in the minuto 15 and then America scores 2 to win? I heard that. I
had to use them.
The Cruz Azuleo stats. Always unpredictable. Well, I wouldn't say that unpredictable.
That was actually I got to watch part of that game after the Houston. That was a really entertaining game. The Clásico there in the CantinaMX.
I couldn't have planned it any better, man. That was. Yeah, and you know what? That game was very highly entertaining. I don't think every match is gonna be to that level or that entertaining, but I do think it's testament of what the league is capable of. That's what they've been working at, and I know a lot of fans because as Mexico fans, a lot of us don't like the league, or we put the league down. but we have, I'm not going to say the gap has closed, but you can't deny the teams have improved, and we've been seeing it now. It's becoming more and more apparent.
Well, yeah, and it's not just that, and eventually MLS teams are going to start getting, their South Americans are going to be better than Liga MX South Americans.
Yeah, they're going to start, and they're going to be investing a lot more, especially with the World Cup. I mean, if they do get it, because Morocco has become now a more serious candidate in some senses.
Right. But look at a player like that guy who plays with the Uruguayan kid.
Yeah.
Diego Garcia. I mean, if he gets offers, to go to, Serie A or whatever it is, from LAFC, then they're going to be, 20, 21-year-old South American kids knocking down the doors at MLS sides to come and play.
Well, and that's one of the things the league has been doing. They've been actively getting younger and younger players.
Right, which is why it's so important. Joel, why that's so important?
I don't know. You got me there.
Well, what have we been talking about for months? About young foreign players in MLS. Where could they also come from?
Oh, Mexico, man. Mexico, who has limited the the amount of players that could get into a team, and especially with, you have that stat in Mexico with, they'll have all these foreign players and a lot of them won't even get any playing time. They're just taking a spot in the roster.
Exactly. Now, I do want to wrap it up. Oh, go ahead, Juan.
No, yeah, you're already seeing, like, Galaxy has a 15-year-old Mexican kid from the under-17. He's kind of highly touted right now. Who knows what will happen, but they're already like moving toward that, doing that type of stuff.
We but before we do wrap it up here tonight, I do want to, because we didn't have Ronnie on earlier when we were talking about the Conca Champions.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. but Ron, just please understand that we did remind Joel that Club America had won 7 CONCACAF championships to their 1. But America is in they're in well, I'll ask you, how much of a pickle are they in? Are they in a big pickle or just a little pickle that they can work through?
No, they're in a pickle. I already got some Kleenex and some joint compound.
Wait, the Kleenex are happy
breaking
tissues
walls and shit.
or
Happy Kleenex or sad Kleenex? Yeah, happy or sad Kleenex?
They're gonna be sad. I even cleared up, like the floor, so I can just get in a fetal position and cry.
Yeah. Do you have that patch that people have for doorknobs on the for the drywall? Are you ready with that?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So you're not expecting America to pull it out then?
No.
Now my other question is again, as an impartial observer, I saw when Piojo made the comments that he made before the game, I was thinking, man, are you?
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing too.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many other ways you can say that. Why on earth give the other team another something else to?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was stupid too. But speaking of pulling out, Joel, didn't in the conversation that we had with Tom, I think John asked him about did any English or British news media write about the about Mexican football? Didn't the BBC cover it though once?
You know what? I don't know about the BBC, Ron. I think Cal is more informed on that. But I know World Soccer, they used to have a small column. So the English magazine, World Soccer, all the way in the back, almost by where the ads were at.
Where the classified ads were?
Yeah, you would get sometimes half a page, other times like a paragraph on just on Mexican football on the league, and they'll bunch them up with like some of the other leagues. And for a while, Martin was writing that. They were giving Martin some space. You know, he got to do one or two things, but I think that's as far as it went for coverage.
Well, apparently it hasn't gotten better, according to
Well,
Tom. Where I mean, pretty much. Yes. Well, do they talk about Mexico? And they go, no, they don't.
yeah, well, you know what? A big thing is because players, you don't see that many players. So like in some of those magazines, you were more likely to see articles on the Brazilian league or on the Argentine league, because they were keeping track on certain young promesas to see which one was going to end up, or if a player was already linked to a club, then they'll do like a profile. But you just don't have that with Mexican players. I think for them, even the whole Chicharo thing came out of left field. Like, who's this guy, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say it was surprising, but maybe for some folks that listen to us, maybe they do think that it may have been. So America loses, and Ron, is it going to be an all MLS final, or do you see Chivas pulling it out?
Ya se durmió Ron.
I think we'll speak for Ron and say that.
No,
He's like
no,
Grandpa
no.
Simpson.
No, I think that MLS is going to pull it off. I think they're right now a little pissed off about the World Cup, that they're treating this as like the World Cup, and like they're treating it with more urgency than Liga MX, because right now Liga MX, they're thinking, especially they're thinking, at least the clubs. It seems like they're starting to think about the summer transfers and the next season and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think just U.S. soccer in general and MLS, they're a little like more, because of the World Cup, obviously missing out on the World Cup. I think that they're treating this a little bit more serious than the Liga MX teams right now.
That's a very interesting point. Do you think that if MLS does win, or when they win their first World Cup championship, do you think that that'll start making this tournament a little bit more, or I guess I should say, teams will start taking it more seriously? Although they're taking it 1,000 times more seriously than they did when it first started. I mean, you would never see sellouts in a semifinal on a Tuesday in Guadalajara.
Well, I mean, just think of, some of these teams. I mean, they like, what was it? Who was it? Toronto. I mean, they trained in Mexico prior to this for like how many days, how many weeks?
Well, they're there right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, so they're treating
Pachuca, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and this comes from the top of the league. So, I mean, obviously there's more urgency, and this kind of reminds me of back in when in the Mexican downward spiral, when they were in the abyss in like 2000, 2001, with Ojitos Mesa, and then like missing out on the U17, the U20, the Olympics,
right.
and everything. It's like there was urgency from the league and the federation. And I think that you're starting to see a little bit of this with the U.S. soccer. I mean, with the whole elections, it was a lot of drama. It's like it's like, dude, when have you seen that in U.S. soccer? Like, you haven't, and part of that is because of them missing out the World Cup. It's like there's urgency. They have to take it serious. And good for them, Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that this, and I think that you, well, actually, I kind of echo your sentiment, because I mean, you've always said that you're, not necessarily for this tournament, but your dream is to have like this Pan-American club tournament where you're playing in Vancouver and Buenos Aires and all these great cities, to where it can maybe one day rival the Champions League in Europe, at least for popularity over here. And I'm right there with you. I think that would just be fantastic. I mean, don't think it hasn't been lost on MLS and CONCACAF both, that in their three most populous countries, they're in the top media market in Toronto, the top media market in New York, and the top media markets in Mexico, which are Guadalajara and Mexico City. So I know that they're very, very fond of that. The folks at CONCACAF for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I just think that this has the opportunity to just be a terrific tournament. So I'm glad to see that it's gotten a lot more competitive, and it's only going to get better, I think, as the years press on. But that's a really good point you made, Ron, about the sense of urgency that you're seeing with the U.S. Federation and MLS and having that, making every effort. And it reminds me of when Liga MX teams would be in the Libertadores and the Liguilla would start, and they have a quarterfinal or a semifinal somewhere, and they say, well, the Liguilla has to have, we can't change the Liguilla. They used to just drive me crazy.
Well, true. I mean, and going back to the urgency or lack of, a couple of weeks back, they criticized Piojo Herrera because he told Martin and he told, Aguilar, Paul, forget about the World Cup. So I mean, right now, a lot of the players in Liga MX, they're more worried about their club and they're more worried about making the national team. And I think part of that has to do because obviously Osorio looks down upon MLS to a certain degree. Not that he looks down, to Liga MX, but he prefers his European, the European team players, European based. So I just think that MLS, the team, they're obviously looking for this international exposure because they're not in the World Cup. But on the other side, you can see where the priorities are in Liga MX. And I'm not taking anything away from Toronto or Red Bulls and stuff like that. But we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. It's like, what the hell was Stuka thinking? I'm thinking, what the hell is Miguel, Herrera thinking? Saying those type of things right now. It's like, dude, it's like you don't need to be saying that type of stuff. But that kind of indicates where their mindset is at. You know what I mean?
Right. No, and you're. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have. I couldn't have phrased it any better than. There it is, man. I was on the different page.
You use your tongue prettier than a $20 whore.
Yeah, but anyway. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we had a great show here tonight. We want to thank Tom Harrison for joining us. Want to thank everybody. I know that Rigo had to hop off a little while ago, so we do thank Rigo Ayala for joining us. Ron, thank you very much for coming on with Tom and dropping your truth bomb there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you guys.
We'll talk to you next week. Joel Aceves, thanks for coming on again, albeit late.
Yes.
Don't forget to turn off the lights and lock the door on your way out, Joel.
Thank you, John. Be here
last one in, last one out.
If you guys don't hear from me for a while, you know why.
We'll follow the trail of tissues.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
All right. We will. We'll keep an eye on that for you, Ron. Chickies, thanks a lot for hopping on as always and helping set all this up. Do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Good interview there.
Yeah, I thought it went. I thought it went well. And obviously, Tom knocked it out of the park. So glad to have him on. Yeah, and Daniel Preciado joins us from Escondido. Thank you for hopping on, Dan. And I thought that when I saw the 3-0 last week, that there's no way, but they made it close. But in good position for them to move on.
Yeah, man. Pleasure as always, man.
All right. Well, this has been the CantinaMX podcast, and we do thank you guys for joining us, and again, thanks again to Tom Harrison for coming on, and talking about Liga MX and Group A with us on the CantinaMX podcast. Again, you can listen to this and previous editions of the podcast from the Podcast Center on iTunes and, of course, also on Google Play. Do appreciate y'all tuning in for Daniel Preciado, Albert Campa, Ron De Luna, Joel Aceves, Rigo Ayala, and Daniel Preciado. And, of course, a special thanks to Tom Harrison. My name is John Jagu, and we will talk to you guys again next week.